how simple it was for just print on demand, in that kind of way. So that's really interesting. Thank you. Kind of going off of that a little bit, do you have any idea? I know that you're still in the process of writing, but did you have any idea of kind of where you wanted to go published, or if you're allowed to talk about your book? I'm not sure how much you want to talk about, but I would love to gather any ideas you have on just like the story, cover art, and if you know the ending, because I've like going into like researching writers and novelists, I've read that some people are just like, I honestly don't know the ending. It changes up as I write. And some people are like, the ending is set in stone. I write my story based on how I want it to end. So I kind of wanted to hear your ideas on that. And if you have an ending, or if you're like, no, it's changed so much, I don't have an idea of my story, or I know where this is going to go, I would just love to hear it all.
So I have a general plot, but I don't have an ending. So I've got enough I have enough written that would like enough history lore written that could span a couple of I just hit my microphone, sorry. it, could, it could span a couple of books. Um and I actually have my little notebook here with all my notes in it. I wrote this when I was on holiday in August last year. And so I've got my writing is terrible. I've got like different points of view and
Cool.
whether or not they should be like the main character for specific books, or if it's per chapter. So I've got a beginning and an ending for potentially book one, a beginning for book two, and a beginning for book three, but I don't have endings for the rest of them.
Oh my
So
God, that's amazing. You already have 3 books lined up and ready to go. Like you have the ideas for them laid out. Do you think you're gonna go past a series, or after the 3 books, are you gonna start on like a completely new storyline?
I don't know how long it's going to have to go for, because there's so much that there's so much that I want to tell with this story, and because, like I said before, I've fleshed out all these characters.
Mm.
I'm really in this. I'm in a position now where there's so much that I want to say that it's not going to all fit into one little box. So I need to figure out how I'm going to get all of that across in the amount of I mean, a book is about a big book would be one like 100,000 words, like a long book. And I feel like that the first book, the first layout that I have, that's going to take that. But I've got so much more written in front of it. Like it just feels it's such a tiny little part, and I don't feel like I could give the full story of what I want to say and everything that I want to get into it in just one small book. It's going to have to be a longer series.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. Speaking of your fleshed out characters, I'm very curious. Do you have a favorite character, or do you have like one that you've kind of just been working on since the beginning? A character that either relates to yourself, or you really like them because like they're the complete opposite of you? I would love to kind of get into that.
So I have this character who he's not a main character, but he's definitely my favorite, and it's because he has this really interesting arc in that he starts off. I'm just totally spoiling part of this here. He starts off like this really good guy. He's just like really chivalrous. It's a fantasy series. Might make more sense. He's just this really chivalrous guy. He's like he does things for people just selflessly, but there's a couple of really awful things happen to him. Again, he's not the main character, this is just in the sidelines. A couple of really terrible things, and he just turns into this evil person, just really, truly, truly awful person with no redeeming features. it's kind of like I wanted to write a villain who didn't really have reasons for being a villain. He just was. Like he's just inherently a bad guy. But I couldn't find a way to do it without it coming across really like cheesy. So I thought the next best thing was like the really great guy to really, really, truly, truly despicable.
I love that the villain origin story, like the villain arc is started. That's honestly one of my favorite tropes. I'm a big fan of tropes in reading. Enemies to lovers, number one, but another one is like just a really good guy that just got dealt a bad hand and then turns out to go into their villain arc and then just becomes a terrible person. Because at that point, I feel like you can almost justify them becoming a villain. And it's like, yes, they're a terrible person, but considering what they went through to how they turned out, like it
Yeah.
makes sense in a way.
Hmm.
I found that really
I think
fascinating.
yeah, I think I want it to be done in a way. I say I want it to be done in a way. I'm the one that's doing it. But I want to do it in a way where it it makes sense. Like you say, it does make sense. But there's also it gets to a point where there's no coming back from it. Like that's just
Oh,
you can't be redeemed at a certain point. I think I
yeah,
wanted to tell it like that. Um yeah.
that's
But again, he's not a
that's
main character.
which I honestly find all the more fascinating. At least for me, I don't know about chat. I don't know about you guys, but majority of the books that I read, even the shows that I watch, I end up rooting for the side characters more than the main character. I end up like
Yeah.
finding them more appealing. And I it makes me happy to hear that even the author kind of favors their side character over their main character as one of their favorites, cuz I feel like to have a really good story, to have a really good book, to make it engaging, all of the characters have to be fleshed out. And the stories that focus solely on the main character and give them like insane plot armor doesn't really flesh out the rest of the characters. You just kind of have a harder time connecting. So I find that
Mhm.
very fascinating and extremely good that you're focusing a lot on the other characters and making sure that everyone has a great backstory, some like great lore behind them to kind of help their character evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
So I don't want to go too much. Like I know I've been asking you a lot on your book. I hope we're not spoiling anything. I don't want you to spoil anything. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
kind of now until I get curious again and move off the topic of details of your story and kind of just talk about the writing industry as a whole. Is there any like misconceptions that you think come across a lot while in this field of work, or just from like an outside perspective, starting as just an avid reader to becoming a novelist? Is there anything that you wish like others know about writing or the industry?
Yeah. I think one of the main things that you hear quite a lot is that oh, this so and so a writer is just oh, they're so talented, like it's just amazing. Like if you take Mary Shelley, for example, she wrote Frankenstein when she was 17, I think, and fantastic, incredible work. Um, but you don't get to be a writer of that level, of that caliber, without putting any work in. It's not just raw talent. You do have to nourish it. You have to practice and make sure that you're getting all your grammar correct and everything like that. You can't. I think I know that I'm guilty of this in other aspects. If I'm not an artist by any means, but if I pick up a paintbrush and it's not immediately perfect, I will put the paintbrush in and be like, I can't do it. You have it's a skill. You have to hone it. You can't just pick it up and just do it. There will be a rare few that can just bash out a full length novel with no prior knowledge of how to do it. There will be those that can do that, but it's very rare, and it is something that you have to work at. And I think people just assume it's just writing. Anybody can do it, and anybody can, but it takes practice. Um, it's also it's not just like sitting in a cafe typing away, drinking coffee. It's quite laborious. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Like I was saying earlier, that you have to flesh out backgrounds. There was someone in the chat, they mentioned spreadsheets. That's yeah. That's exactly what it is. There's a lot of admin work that goes into it, like creating big plot walls. I have a million post-its here that I can just, like, if I've got a thought that comes to me, it goes on there, and it's like I try and fit it into where it would be in the plot. It's There's a lot more goes into it than just sitting and getting words on a page. And I think people just think you can just sit and write beginning, middle, end, and then you're done. Yeah, there's there's a lot that goes into it, and I think it can be, people can assume that it doesn't take a lot of effort to do it sometimes, and therefore you can be, people can be quite dismissive of it. But I think it's very much a case of, if you believe in your own work and you are inspired by your own work and you are passionate about it, then people will start to be as well after that.
I love that. And thank you for putting that perspective into place, where you referred to writing as a skill, because I do agree. And it's not like, coming from an outside perspective, me who has no knowledge on what it takes to be a writer, I also, like, thinking on it, yes, of course, writing is a skill, and I completely believe it. But kind of just like looking at surface level, I would have never like expected to have to hone that as a skill, like you would being an artist or a blacksmith, something like that, where you just kind of put that perspective. And I hope everyone who's watching can also kind of take that in and soak that in a little bit, where just because you can write doesn't make you a writer, you know? Like you said, there's the talented few that automatically have it off the bat, but there's so much work that goes into it that I fear isn't showcased enough. So I'm very happy that you're able to kind of shine light on that and talk about that more, because I do agree that a lot of writers don't get the proper praise for how much effort goes into it, how long it takes, the different storylines that are scrapped, because we all see the finished product and we're like, wow, this is amazing. We don't know how long it took them, the stories, the characters that they probably created and then like threw away, and
Mm-hmm.
how much goes into that. So thank you. At least for me, like, that clicked in my head hearing you say that this is a skill and you have to hone it. I was like, well, obviously, duh, it is, but that just didn't register to me at first. So I was like, I had to take a step back there for a little bit while listening to you. um, can I also oh my gosh, so sorry. Can I also ask you a little bit about when you first got into like the writing industry? I guess like when you got started, was there anyone that like you were able to go to for support, or any sort of systems that you use that were able to help you, and or maybe that you still use? Just for the audience members, if there's anyone out here who is a writer or wants to get started and doesn't really know where to start, is there anything that kind of helped you on your journey?
So, in terms of like systems or anything, I can't say specifically yes, because it's still fairly new to me as well. Um, However, I did find a lot of um, just hints and tips and stuff on how to get started. Like all this stuff I told you earlier about publishing, self-publishing, query letters, I found all of that out through TikTok. It was just, it's very much I'm just going to have a little look online and see where this takes me. But in terms of honing your skills, a really good way to do that is to connect to writing competitions. There's so many out there that are free to enter, and the prizes may not be massive. You'll get like, maybe you'll get a mug or like £50, but you would also get your work published, noticed by people, potentially, and then through that you would make some connections, which is a great way to go about it. Um, there's not an awful lot I can say on it because I don't have many systems in place anyway. There's no one that I really talk to about it apart from friends, family. Just that's actually a really good thing to say though, is um, a great thing to have as someone who is um, endeavoring to be an author, a writer, or any kind of artist, someone who is creating something. A really good support network is key. Someone that you can bounce your ideas off of, that you can, for me it's giving pages to somebody going, can you have a look over this, does it make sense, is it ridiculous, do I need to scrap it? If you're just not sure, having someone there that can support and help you is more beneficial than anything else. For me at the minute, that's the the key thing for me just now. And I would recommend, even it doesn't have to be a family member, even anyone close to you, more often than not actually having someone that isn't within your like core sphere of people will be really helpful because they're not um beholden to you in any way, so they're not going to like sugarcoat it. If your work is not great, they're not going to be like, oh, it's wonderful, it's so good, yay. They will just tell you, but having somebody there is a really good idea. That's one of the best ways to get your work to the level that you want it to be, is to have someone there to check it that's not yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I feel like that also is helpful for those people who realize, like, I don't need a bunch of fancy, I don't need to pay someone to look at this, I don't need a bunch of fancy like resources, you just use what's at your disposal.
Oh yeah.
Kind of off of the support network, since starting a couple years ago, is there anything that you wish you knew in the beginning that would have definitely like helped you out more, or anything that like as you've progressed and grown, things that you've noticed that like, oh shoot, I wish I knew about this earlier, or like this method really worked for me, I kind of wish I started this, like I wish I knew about this method, or anything along those lines?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I would say that I mentioned this earlier. I'm a real perfectionist in that if I don't do something that's great immediately, I will just dump it, uh, which is a terrible way to do things. So try not to be so self-critical of your own work, but also you do need to have a kind of resilience and a thick skin, not just from other people, but from your own self. Um, and you, if I'd known that when I first started, I probably would have stuck with the original character that I'd created. Who she may come back into it later, but I got so bogged down with it at the beginning, where I was like, this is rubbish. I can't write. I'm not a writer. Why am I doing this? Like, it's just so, being that self-deprecating is, it's it's so unhelpful to the creative process. And you just, you need to make sure you're not hindering yourself by putting these blocks in place. Um, so that, but also in terms of like just writing itself, don't be scared to just brain dump just on your page. If you're having like a day where you just really don't feel like not necessarily writer's block, you just don't feel like writing that day, you just want to go play games or something, just get anything down, like 100 words, but it's something. And they can be rubbish and you can chuck them the next day, but as long as you've got something there, it's not a wasted day. Even if it's just a thought and you've just scribbled on a wee notepad saying, oh, this character likes biscuits. Like, something that you can add in or take away, but you've done something that day. So you've you don't feel like you're doing nothing, which I feel I get really stressed if I don't do anything.
Mm.
So if I do just the tiniest little bit, it takes that away and it maintains the joy that comes from the creativity other than adding a stressful layer onto it. So yeah, that's
That is great advice, and I'm happy that you mentioned kind of maintaining the joy, because I feel like not necessarily just in creative outlets, but in life in general, burnout is so easy and it's so common and it's not talked about a lot. And I'm I don't know, that makes me feel good because I know that there's times where I'll do something and I'm like, oh, like I just am not feeling it the most today. But you're right, like doing something small, even if it doesn't measure up to what you did the day before, like it's better than nothing, and it
Mhm.
does provide that sense of relief. And I'm happy that you also related that you said that so I could relate to it, because I like, I don't know how many people are able to relate to that, or like I know it's not amazing out there, but like every little bit counts. Like that saying, I always go back, like every penny counts, because it
Mhm.
truly does. In the end, I don't know. I think that's amazing advice, and thank you. I really resonated with that.
I'm glad.
um, I also wanted to kind of touch on. I know I don't know how deep you want to go into the novel that you're working on, but I am curious to know if there was like a particular author that maybe helped inspire you to write, or a book series, a trilogy that kind of inspired what you're currently working on, or if you just have a favorite author or favorite book.
My favorite book is The Hobbit. Um, it has been for years. I've got a big poster on my wall right behind my PC here. That is my all-time favorite book. It's just incredible. I was actually talking about Tolkien earlier to my sister, and how this actually kind of links back to what we were saying before. He put in so much work to his works, like creating the language. He wrote essays, poems, like it's a lifetime of work to create these incredible stories. Um, and it just kind of it shows how much you can get out of creating worlds like that, but also how much work it takes to create worlds like that. So I'd say as far as inspiration goes, he's a big inspiration for me. Um, I would also say I'm not likening myself to Tolkien in any way. He's just an inspiration. um, but in terms of books that have inspired me to write these, no, I wouldn't say there was. There's not any kind of ties that I can think of.
Okay.
Um, I'd what had I just read
Was
before I
it just
started?
like was it just the fact that you've grown up reading and you spent a lot of time reading that really made you want to become a writer and pursue this?
Yeah. When I was wee, my mum read all the time. She still does.
Mm.
Um, but I think that is what encouraged me to read. I'm always I will spend a full day just sitting reading a book. Like I got Sunrise on the Reaping, and I read it in a day. I just sat, and that was all I did. It was just, and so it it's such an important part of my life. Um, it's an escapism, but it's also you can learn so much from books, which is a really obvious statement to make, but there's there's so much nuance in creativity that goes into everything that I don't think you can be a successful writer, a successful author if you don't read consistently. Um, because you don't get that perspective from other authors, if that makes any kind of sense. Um,
Yeah.
you I think when it comes to books, reading, um, there's so there's so much. So if I could read every book in the world, see if I had like 3 wishes or something, I would make one of them that I had enough time to read every book. Because there's so you're never gonna have the experiences that you would reading if you didn't take the time to just sit and absorb it and take it all in. But there's books are they can be written in such a way that they're relevant years later. I feel like I'm really rambling and I've went off topic here. They
You're
can
still
be
on top. Don't worry.
they can be relevant years later. Look at like The Handmaid's Tale. It's still being brought up, or 1984. But even modern books that are written within the past couple of years, you will find that they become super relevant in like 10, 20, 50 years. There's a storytelling doesn't age really. It's something that's with us from when we're infants. You grow up with it, whether you're a reader, whether someone's just telling you stories, whether we're just having a conversation. Everything is a story. We're narrative as a being, and that's how your life flows. Your life is a narrative, and within that, your everything that you do becomes a story. And I think that you only expand that and expand your worldview by reading more. And because of that, I feel like it's really important uh, to read if you want to be a writer.
I mean, that was an incredible response, and you kind of already answered my next question that I was going to ask you with just because I know like we're moving into the digital age, everything is becoming online, everyone's getting um kind of like their stories in like short forms, like no one's really going to even pick up like physical books, even books are starting to move online, and I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on the importance of writing and how much it means to continue producing books, and how, because slowly all of our crafts are becoming a lost art form, and I don't want writing to become a lost art form, and I feel like it is, especially like moving into the digital age. And I know that you literally just touched on this, you like read my mind, you answered most of this, but just the importance of writing, the importance of books, not only as a way to like keep history, but also even having fiction and fantasy and just kind of being an escape, like you said.
Mhm.
I don't know, I feel like more people need to realize the importance of books.
Yeah, absolutely. It's stories and books, writing, it gives people a voice. It's particularly important to it's important to everyone, but it's particularly important to people who are marginalized, who don't often get to say what they would want to say, so they find solace in books. You'll find a lot of people when if they struggle to express how they're feeling or their situation or something, they'll often give you a quote from a book that they've read and they've loved, and they've been able to find resonance within that. And so they'll tell you this quote, and it will link their whole experience to this set of words. It's just words on a page, but so it brings that person an element of comfort and allows them to express themselves. So they're incredibly important. It's, for example, uh, as a woman, if you are in a situation where you can't find yourself, uh, you need an escapism. Finding a book that has a strong woman that is like able to do the things that she wants to do. She overcomes her trials. She um, finds friends in unlikely places. She defeats her enemies and stuff. Finding that is like finding a kind of friend, someone you can not confide in, but you find a kind of camaraderie with them. It's powerful. It really matters.
Yeah, and I mean, I know since going back to basically when stories were created, that was the one way to kind of, I guess, fight the system in a way. It was through words. A lot of famous like women writers. I know with the anniversary of the Pride and Prejudice movie, people are doing like a whole Pride and Prejudice revival, but that was like such a big such a big win for women when that book first came out, because it was not only a woman author, but it also promoted that there is a strong female lead that was still able to kind of not fit into societal standards and was able to pursue her own interests on top of like, sorry, I didn't mean to ramble about Pride and
No,
Prejudice,
no, you're
right?
absolutely fine.
But I just think, like you said, it's not only are books a great way to store knowledge and to kind of pass that throughout the years, but it's also um, a way for us to relate to each other and to kind of not repeat history is basically
Yeah.
where I was trying to go full circle without rambling too much, because I was like, trust me, I could ramble on books for so long because I also love reading, but I wanted to make sure that you get the spotlight. um, if you haven't read Pride and Prejudice, I recommend it. It is so good.
I would agree.
So I was just going through a reread because I recently rewatched the movies and I was like, you know what? I haven't read this book in years. Let me go pick it back up. And I picked
Yeah.
it back up. And it's cool. Anyways, um, speaking on favorite books, is there like, I know that you mentioned The Hobbit being
Mhm.
one of your all-time favorite books. For the audience here who are like listening and watching, maybe we have some young writers. Is there any advice that you want to give to someone who wants to start writing, or maybe some sort of book that really helped you kind of get into what you want? Like the first book that you remember that really kind of stuck with you. If that makes sense. Because we read a lot of our
Yeah.
books in lifetime. Is there one that you always go back to where you're like, this is a great book. I think everyone should read this. It just stuck with you.
A book that stuck with me. The This is really stupid. The first one, the first one that popped into mind. Oh, this is from when I was really wee. I We had this book of Peter Pan, and it had an audio tape that went alongside it, and it you would it the audio tape, I'm sure it told the story, so you could read along with it, or you could read it out loud along with the story. And that, obviously I've not read it again since I was like 7, but it's one that's really stuck with me. The story is it's so incredible. There's so much in it that, but it's so translatable to a young person. It's written for young people, but I think that books and stories for children are often overlooked, um, as just being, oh, it's a kid's book, doesn't matter, just here, like, go away and read that. They're really they are really important from when you're really young to kind of get used to the way of being in a different world, um, and then you can run with that. I don't know about you, but I have a really active imagination. So even after I've finished reading a book, I can still like be in the world that the book is set in, even
Mhm.
after the fact. Um, and I think it's really important to nurture reading from a very young age, um, to be able to have that develop into adulthood, to maintain your your love of reading and things like that. But that would be the book that's stuck with me, that just immediately popped into my head. Thing is, I haven't spoken about that book or thought about it in a really long time.
But the fact that it was like the first thing that popped into your head really just shows the impact it had on you. And I'm so happy that you chose a children's book for this answer. Because I also agree, like, looking back, I don't know if this might just be like a me thing, but I love going back and rereading books that I was obsessed with when I was a kid. There's like this
Yeah.
old book that I had that was full of Japanese fables that my mom used to read me. And going back, I'm like, yes, like some of these were like silly stories of like a kid turning into a monkey because he wasn't doing good. But I'm like, there is actually really good underlying life lessons through there where I'm reading this as an adult and I'm like, I was like, they were onto something. Like it makes so much sense. And I don't know, hearing Peter Pan, because I'm currently rereading Winnie the Pooh right now because I'm
Oh,
going
that's one
through
of my
like
favorites. I love Winnie the Pooh.
I was like, you know what? I need like a good warm book, and to me, Winnie the Pooh was a good warm book. So I'm so happy that you picked a children's story for that answer. I am so sorry. I've been also kind of like neglecting the chat because I've been so focused in on you.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
sorry.
but no, oh my god, no, that is so on me. I just saw that different comments were getting brought up, and there was one of a core memory being Misery by Stephen King.
Yeah.
Oh, and the first school book report at 11 years old, I think that is very wholesome. I don't even remember my first school book report, and the fact that you had a Stephen King novel at 11, that is an advocator right there.
Mhm.
Is there going off of that topic, is there a book that you were forced to read for school but you actually ended up loving?
Yes.
Where you're like, oh, I could read this again?
Yeah, it was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It's now
Interesting.
one of my favorite books. It's so, and I remember reading it in English because we were reading it, the teacher was reading it out loud and we were reading alongside her. And I remember reading it and I'm being like, what is this? Why am I reading about zips? But then I got like really sucked into it and I was like, this is amazing. And I went back and reread it a couple of years later and it's incredible. I absolutely love it now. It's one of my favorite books. But that was one of them. I think I was about maybe 14, 15 at the time. But yeah, that would be the one.
Okay, I'm happy that you said that because for some reason, like I always knew about Brave New World, but we never read that in school. But I actually recently went to the library and picked up a book by the same author, the author of Brave New World, and it's called Island or like Lost Island or something. I'm only like I just started this. I'm like not even through the first chapter yet. But I really enjoyed the way the writing style of the author, and like literally on the first cover page it's like brought to you by the writer of A Brave New World, and I was like, I've heard so much about this book. Should I get it? Should I read it? And you kind of
You
solidified
definitely
solidified
should.
I was like, I feel like it's one of those books where it's just a must. um Dark Materials trilogy by Philip
Oh,
Pullman.
those are
I
great.
Are they? I've never heard of
Yeah.
this. What is
Have
it
you seen
about?
um oh, what's the thing? Oh, it's gonna annoy me. Can I have a wee look here? 2 seconds.
Yes, of course you can. Dark his Dark Materials trilogy. Northern Lights, his Golden
Yes,
Compass.
yes, yes, yes. That's what I was trying to look up. You know, the film came out with Ian McKellen was the bear, the polar bear, and Lyra.
Oh, oh my gosh! It was the polar bear with like the golden armor, right?
Yes, yes, yes. It's those.
Okay, no, I've never seen that, but I have seen like the posters for. I know exactly what you're talking about. Wow. Okay,
It's those. They're
that
definitely worth reading.
are they definitely worth reading?
Hmm.
Interesting. Well, now that we're on the topic of books, do you have any book suggestions that you think people out here should read? Because
Oh.
I'm looking for some new reads as well.
um, I've just got Yellow Face actually. I'm in the middle of reading that. It's very, very good. It won a couple of awards, I think.
Oh,
It's basically it's this woman overtakes like steals the identity of this other woman, and I think it's just it's done really well. I don't want to say too much because I feel like it would spoil it. But I would highly, highly recommend it. It did win a few awards fairly recently. It's quite a new book.
okay.
But yeah,
This
definitely, definitely one to read.
yellow face. Okay. I will definitely take a peek into that because I'm always open for a good book. Right now I don't. It sounds like I'm a big fantasy fan, and it sounds like you're a big fantasy fan. But I've kind of
Yes.
moved recently. I've been trying to like broaden my horizons because I've been reading a lot of fantasy books in a row, and I was like, I need something new. So I picked up a historical fiction. It's called 50 Words for Rain, and
Oh.
there's like a really sad plot twist at the end, but that is also a really great book if anyone likes historical fictions. I recommend putting
Ooh.
that out there. But before I get into it, so I want to like just do a little side step to there just to hear some new books because I think it's always fun hearing what people are reading, and I feel like that also tells you a lot about a person, about what books they like, what books they're currently reading, because everyone has their own um I guess, subject that they enjoy. So I always like
Mhm.
hearing about that. But besides your book that you're currently writing right now, is there anything else that you've been like working on, or any sort of like articles that you've been writing to help you practice for your novel, or is like your main focus set on the novel that you have at the moment?
In terms of writing, it's definitely just the novel.
Mhm.
I feel like if I try and do too much outside of it, I will just get really distracted and it'll get left for ages. I would end up going back to it, but yeah, I'm in a kind of writing zone at the minute, so I want to keep on sticking with the novel. But I would like there's a competition that runs monthly through the Scottish Book Trust, um, and it is 50-word stories, which I think is a really cool concept. So you're given a prompt every month, and you write a 50-word story around this prompt, which is like a sentence or two. It's
Mhm.
mad, but it makes you be really creative. It forces that kind of um, it forces you to make sure you're using every single word with a specific intention, and it's really interesting. So I'd like to kind of play with those now and again, but mostly just the novel. I've got some other like side hobbies as well. The contest is available for entry in Scotland, I think. I don't think it's available anywhere else.
Mm.
So I'm just answering this wee comment here. um,
That is interesting,
sorry.
and I feel oh, that's totally okay. I'm sure there's probably similar contests like around, I would
Yeah.
say. But I do think that is a really great exercise for writers and just like for creativity because
Mhm.
it's fun to enter. Because you said it's only you have to like basically write a story in 50
Yeah.
words. So that seems very difficult, but very entertaining.
It's really cool. I think because it's open to all ages as well. They have categories of ages. I at my work I run a creative writing group, and I sometimes get them. It's for kids, so I sometimes get them to do this little 50-word challenge, and it brings out so much that you would never have really considered. Younger people, they're maybe like 14, 13, 14, but younger people have such creative minds. They're not dampened by like this sounds really ridiculous, but they're not dampened by the pressures of adult life. Um, so they're free. They're writings that they come up with, and the ones that are so you can read the ones that are submitted on the website as well. They're a lot more outside the box than you would typically find an adult would necessarily write. It's really interesting. Um, yeah.
I love that. And as we're coming up on the end of the hour, I would actually like to get your, I guess if you have any Not necessarily resources, but any other like exercise or advice for anyone who is watching that maybe wants to go into writing, or anything that they can try to just kind of work their creative juices. Like you said, this 50-word story is such a great creative outlet. And if you have anything else that you would like to say um, to everyone who is listening right now.
Just if you have an idea for something, a book, a poem, or it doesn't necessarily have to be just writing, it can be any kind of creative outlet. If you have an idea, don't just leave it, put it somewhere, write it down, paint a splodge, scribble a sketch, do something with it. I feel like someone actually touched on this earlier in the comments, but I feel like there's a lot of books that are just sitting in someone's attic that could be world changing books, but they're never going to get finished because the idea was given up on. So if you have an idea that you are passionate about and you feel really strongly about, don't discourage yourself and don't let other people discourage you from it. Make sure that you see it through to any kind of end, but do see it through, because you never know what might come of it.
I love that. I think that's great advice. If anyone in chat has anything that they would like to ask Kat, please now is the time. Otherwise, Kat, is there anything that you would like to plug? If anyone, maybe like if there's a way someone can reach you if they have any questions on writing or becoming a novelist, or if there's any sort of um, accounts that you want to publish, or if you have a working title that you want to kind of slowly slip away about your upcoming novel.
I don't actually have a title just now. It's still in the works. I'm not 100% on that. But if anybody is wanting to chat to me or anything, I do have a Twitch channel, so you can find me there. It's Sprocat. I can type it in the chat here. SBROAT. You'd find me there on Twitch, but that's mostly my socials, so that's where you would find me if you wanted to talk to me about anything. Yeah. I write
Amazing.
stories. Oh yes, please do. That would be awesome. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Fun. A writing circle? Exciting. Well, otherwise, this has been such a wonderful conversation.
It's been
I'm
great.
probably gonna offline you later and ask for some book recommendations. Also,
Oh,
if anyone here has any book recommendations, I'm always open for new reads. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and this has been such an enlightening talk. I mean,
thank you for
I
having me.
reading, and I feel like I just didn't know much about writing or novelist or what goes into it. So you really just opened up my horizons, and I'm hoping that you were able to help some other people who have
Yeah.
a spreadsheet. I'm excited. Sorry, someone put the chat. Um, I hope that anyone else who's listening was maybe able to gain some new knowledge on the writing industry. So thank you so much, Kat. It has been a true pleasure.
Thanks very much. I'll catch up with you later. I'll send you some book recs.
Please do. And thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday and a great weekend.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.